Welcome to the Android Headline Show, episode number 10. Thank you very much for everyone for tuning in. We've made it to our number 10 episode. No one has hurt or died in the filming of this podcast, and no animals were abused as of yet. For all of our followers, thank you very much for tuning in each week and watching our staff giving their insight on the latest Android news, rumors, topics from the past week. We do this show so we can share with our readers and fans some of our thoughts on our reporting that we, sometimes we just get out the facts, sometimes we don't give you, our personal opinions so we don't skew our news reporting, and that's what this show is all about. You're going to hear sometimes the good, the bad, and the ugly. So fasten your seatbelts. It's time to get your Droid on. This week, we're going to talk about Jelly Bean updates, some Verizon data plans, Apple Samsung, Nexus 5 rumors, and more. So let's get right into it. I have a few new people to introduce you to on the show. We have our Alexander Maxim, one of our writers from our site. Welcome to the show, Alex. How you doing?
Thank you. Good. Pretty. How about you?
Very good, thank you. And also as well, writer Matt Pettigo has joined us. Thanks for joining us, Matt.
It's always a pleasure.
And Mike Stinger, our faithful writer, here again to join us. How you doing, Mike?
I am fantastic, and I cannot wait to talk about, especially the comments made by Verizon CFO here coming up.
Ooh, you're already biting at the chomp to tear into Verizon, are we?
A little bit.
And as you know, I'm your host, Chris Yaklik, founder and owner of Android Headlines. Just thought I'd get that in there just so I introduce myself to everyone. And Matt and Alex are writers on our site that have been with us for a while. They're not our regulars on the show. Fortunately, our editor, Tom Dawson, got sick, and Droid Mike is attending to some family matters. He could pop by, but we're planning not to see him this week. So we've thrown in a few Greenhorns into the show, so please excuse them as their first debut on the show. I'm sure they'll be fine as they're well-seasoned writers on the Android Headlines site. Now, rolling up right away into our topic number one is our Jelly Bean update news. Seems like we've heard a lot of things in the last couple of days, and I want to start off with one that's maybe kind of sounds like it's a little bit of old news, but it's new for Verizon Galaxy Nexus owners as they finally received an OTA update for their phones. Amazing that it's taken this long for Verizon to update a Google Experience device to Jelly Bean, which was debuted at Google I/O and at the end of June, and most people with Galaxy Nexus devices had it. So it's 3 months after getting, the initial rollout of Jelly Bean, Verizon decides to put it out. I am sure a lot of Galaxy Nexus owners have been a little upset about this. I know I certainly would be if I owned a device from Verizon that was supposed to be a Google Experience and only getting the update now. Seems like they've kind of botched what the whole Google Experience is all about. Alex, you wrote on this. What was your thoughts when you first had to throw this story out?
I just thought it was way too late. Even Sprint beat them to it.
It's amazing how long it's taken. What do you think, Matt? Why do you think it took them so long to get this update out to everybody?
It's Verizon. Pretty much at this point, if you're a big Android enthusiast and you hop on the Verizon train, you're going to end up walking a little funny for a couple weeks after they're done with you. I jumped the Verizon ship a couple of months ago myself. I can't deal with the whatever BS that they have going on over there. I mean, it's just fascism in the form of a carrier.
Well, you
Ooh,
would.
bold claims there, sir.
Hey, once you move back to the world of SIM cards, you will never go back to CDMA. I would much rather have really terrible network coverage, and at least have the freedom of moving my devices easily, getting updates a lot more regularly because, GSM compatibility with international phones, and have to deal with Sprint and Verizon's garbage anymore.
Do you think it has a lot to do with them really being, all dictatorship type of mentality over their network and what goes on it and how it runs and everything like that, or are they just being slow?
I think it's when you're on top, who cares? Why would you devote resources to making your consumers happy if people are going to buy your product regardless? I wouldn't.
Well, all as I know is there's a lot of Nexus fans out there, especially in the Android community, and they definitely are thinking twice about getting their next Nexus device on Verizon. I know I personally would not be purchasing a Nexus or Google Experience device on Verizon after their lengthy time for updating this device. It's really
Speaking of that, though, Chris, isn't it funny though? I mean, Jelly Bean was announced at
I
the
don't think
very
it was
end
very
of.
funny, Mike.
Well, no. Wait a second. Jelly Bean was announced at the very end of June, and it's been. It technically hasn't been that long, but in the world of technology, a couple months is like a year.
It is. It is very long, and I mean, considering that the OTA came out to the HSBA Plus and GSM within a matter of days of it being announced, and it takes almost 3 months for Verizon to push it out. I'm not sure if they got the memo that it was a Google Experience device, but we'll see. I can't imagine that they're going to have another Google Experience device. At least Google's going to have a stern talking with them in regards to how they conduct their updates in the future with these devices.
This is why you buy an iPhone, right? Exactly. I think Google's got to step up there a little bit and start having a little bit more control. I love the open source thing, but if you can't push updates within a reasonable amount of time, you're going to lose a lot of your client base. And for Google, people using Android means advertising dollars. They're not making money off the devices, but they do make money off people running Android. People are going to stop running it if they get frustrated, and a lot of those people are on Verizon. They're just going to move over to the iPhone. They're not geeks like us who actually look into things and have an appreciation for Android. They want a phone that works, and even if the update doesn't bring anything, even if that Jelly Bean update doesn't amount to anything, just knowing that there's an update out there is frustrating. I think I would be frustrated even if I didn't know anything about phones at all. That's just me.
Well, I don't suggest moving to the iPhone, and I can't condone that at any time. But I can condone switching to a different carrier. That I think go across a little bit better. Let's go on to our next story here, and we've got Alex had written a story last week on a report about Motorola and their update plans for some of their devices, and many of the OTAs had been delayed. And some devices are not even seeing Jelly Bean updates. I think it was the Motorola Atrix and the Atrix 2 HD, as they call it, which are fairly new devices. And then he goes and puts a little heat on them where they start talking about the Droid Bionics. What did they exactly have to say about that, Alex? What was the story with the Bionic?
Well, actually, they were talking about not getting the ICS upgrade, not to Jelly Bean yet. They still have a lot of devices on Gingerbread.
I'd like to figure out how it is that they've taken this long to get that Bionic updated just to ICS. We're not even talking about Jelly Bean here. We're talking about Ice Cream Sandwich for a phone that's been out for a year's time period almost. And they still haven't developed it. I mean, it seems like they, took over Motorola and they forgot that they had a Droid Bionic in the lineup, and everyone else is totally, in the company has forgotten that this phone has existed, and they're saying that it's going to be updated. When's the update supposed to come, Alex?
It's hard to say, but the new VP of Motorola, Punit Sony, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's working on a new plan to get the update out there as quick as possible. And he's taking a lot of feedback off of Google Plus right now, which is great to see.
Well, I mean, there's definitely some heat. I mean, this guy worked at Google, and and they came in there, and only now he's starting to understand that the Bionic needs ICS. Maybe they should have skipped that whole ICS update altogether and go straight for Jelly Bean, and at least reward the people who purchased the Bionic with the latest upgrade. My sister-in-law has the Bionic, and she's not a hardcore Android user, but if I owned the Bionic and I was a hardcore Android user, I'd be pretty pissed that this phone is still stuck on gingerbread at this time, and it seems like they've really dropped the ball on updating this phone. And where was management? Yes, they're new and they came in there, but they still had to have a good grasp that this phone was not being tended to properly. And while they're coming in under the old regime, which had some issues, you would think that this might have been earlier in the plans, before they did take it over. What do you guys think, on this? They're not even looking at the Atrix, which, probably should see an update, as well the Atrix HD, I believe it is, that just came out, not too long ago. This can't look good on Motorola or for Motorola owners. Is this basically buy a new phone, you're too bad, too sad?
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like. It's like, well, we haven't pushed out these updates yet. However, look at these nice new shiny phones we have. We have the Razer HD, the Razer Max HD. Check these out. And also, we'll give you a credit and all of this stuff. And, I mean, Google now owns Motorola Mobility. They have for a while now, and it's kind of disappointing. You would think that a Google-owned company would be on their game, but also, a lot of this has to do with how Motorola Mobility was before Google owned them and all this other stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't blame them for everything they do. They are picking up the pieces, but you would have figured walking in there that it might have been a little smoother of a transition with some better planning. We certainly hope that for Motorola owners that you get yourself at least an ICS update, hopefully a Jelly Bean, and if not, make sure to use your $100 credit to get a new phone that is running at least ICS or a Jelly Bean.
Yes, shiny. Buy it now.
Maybe this is their new way of selling some more devices. You know what? You can't have the new update, but you can buy a new device. How about that? And unfortunately, some manufacturers have really gone that way. But I think the sales of those devices and the customer feedback they're going to get on that or negative feedback is really going to be an issue, because people are going to remember that when they go to buy their next device.
You know what they should do? I mean, it'd be a simple solution without them having to devote a lot of resources to pushing out ICS. Why not just unlock the bootloaders and drop the source code? Let the developers do the rest. I mean, wouldn't that save them a lot of work?
It certainly would. And I mean, my opinion has always been that the reason why it takes them so long to get out is because they have obviously these customized theming on top of it. Why not just throw out a stock Android and let them put their themes on, like Apex Launcher, Nova Launcher, Go Launcher, have them put their themes on it via app updates. They can, update these bugs that are in these UIs as well a lot quicker, and they have the updates and they can roll out fairly quicker. Unfortunately, I don't know, they don't see the logic in that, but what can we do but buy Nexus Pure Devices or support companies that update their products in a more timely fashion. Speaking of more timely fashion, Samsung is going to be releasing Jelly Bean on 15 devices. That's a lot of devices that they got listed. Just to cover them, we got the Galaxy Tab 2 7.0, Galaxy Tab 2 10.1, in case anyone actually bought one of those. As well, Galaxy Note 10.1, the Galaxy S2, the Galaxy Note, Galaxy Tab 7.0 Plus, Galaxy S Advanced, whatever the hell that is, Galaxy 2 LTE version, Galaxy Music, which I've never seen one, but whatever, Galaxy Chat, Galaxy Ace 2, Galaxy Beam, Galaxy Ace Plus, Galaxy Mini 2, Galaxy S Duo. So in retrospect, if you look at that, that's a pretty nice list of devices that are going to be getting Jelly Bean. How quick they get it, we'll see. But that's a nice list of devices that are going to be getting updated. Some devices that may, probably may not qualify technically to some other manufacturers that are going to be getting it, showing that Samsung's on top of their game with throwing updates out for their phones or supporting them. And it may have a good reason why Samsung is the #1 Android manufacturer out there right now with updating these pretty quickly. I'm pretty impressed with their plans to throw these updates out. Hopefully they all come within a timely before Christmas would be nice, at least for most of them. And as the only one that was left out, which is actually a little surprising, is the Galaxy Tab 10.1, the original. And I have no clue why they've left that out. We could only speculate on why they haven't, but that was their first device, probably their largest selling tablet, and by far most popular so far. Why would they leave out Jelly Bean on this? Is there something more to it? Anyone care to throw some speculation out there on that?
I have a question.
Sure.
Isn't the Galaxy Tab 2, the second version of the 10.1, isn't that just a very marginal update? Wasn't it basically the same hardware anyway?
It's basically the Galaxy Tab 10.1.1. It's not even the second version in my mind. They didn't upgrade the specs much. There's maybe some new UI changes in the background, a few little things in there, but not enough really to justify calling it the Tab 2 in my eyes. So, but I'm really surprised at their lack of support for the original device, which my wife actually, I handed down my Tab 10.1 to her, and I'm upset now that it's not going to get Jelly Bean. Why do you think, Mike, you have any ideas on why we might not be seeing that? Do you think it has something to do with some Apple stuff possibly? That it's being banned, pulled from the shelves. They decided to pull complete support from this.
Well, I think it might have a little bit to do with Apple going after that device and whatnot, and they're afraid maybe if they push an update out to it, then Apple's going to be all douchebags and get it banned for sale, or who knows what.
Or do they think that this is pretty well guaranteed a ban for sale, so there's no update coming because there's no reason to support it?
Yeah, I don't know if they're that. I don't know if it's like that, but I'm sure that's on their mind that possibly it could get banned.
Greenhorn Alex, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm kind of thinking that they might do that in the next round of devices, but I can't think of any other devices that are left out, other than the S3 that started getting it this morning.
Well, we'll have to talk to Samsung and get some more information on it, because I definitely would like to know why that was left out. But it's really nice to see that Samsung owners are going to be getting their Jelly Beans, and possibly before Christmas by the sounds of it.
And by the way, before we move on, Chris, there's several of these that I've never heard of before, like a Galaxy Chat, I haven't even heard of some of these devices, so I guess it's I'm kind of surprised they're upgrading them to Jelly Bean. I thought I knew all of the devices that they had, but I guess not.
I mean, I think I have a theory about why some of these are getting in there. Some of these no names is Samsung has a history of recycling their hardware and giving it slightly different packaging. So I wonder if a lot of these devices just don't require a lot of work to get an update to, because it looks like the Galaxy Music is just their little pointless music player anyway, which is basically what Galaxy S2 with a cheap screen.
Exactly.
So I mean, maybe it's just no work involved. Maybe that's.
And I think some of these devices, well, we do tend to cater to a lot of the higher end devices on Android. Some of these are more of the mid-grade to lower end Android units that we probably don't pay attention to as much as maybe we should. Obviously, they feel like there's enough warrant to upgrade them to Jelly Bean. As well, some of these devices are very popular in the Europe. And as well India as well too, which necessarily they're some of the higher end devices are not the bigger sellers out there for economical reasons and distribution reasons, and possibly the reason why they're on there. And I've never played with some of those devices on there myself. But let's get on to our next topic, guys. The Verizon CFO. He let his thoughts be known on unlimited data. And basically what he said is that customers are understanding that through the good sales routine of Verizon, once you explain to them their monthly usage, unlimited is just a word. It doesn't really mean anything. And the people don't really, he says, they don't think that a lot of consumers think they consume more data than they really do. And so the whole unlimited thing is going by the wayside, and they're going to see the benefits of going to shared data. And the CFO, Shamo is his name. And, while I think we got Alex here, and he put his thoughts in on this. Well, what were your thoughts exactly on this, Alex, when you were writing this story?
Well, for me, unlimited is more than just a word. Since I'm on AT&T with the 3 GB plan, I'm out of LTE already.
Wow.
Power user.
And I mean, with my wife as well, she's on Verizon. She switched up, and and the other day she was running and she ran out of data near the end of the month. And the benefit of going to shared data, I'm not sure she's seeing it, and she's not a power user. And AT&T has gone this way, and the shared data is is basically reducing people's amount of data allotments. At first they were allowed unlimited, and that unlimited then went to a capped, and now they're at a shared data plan where you have a plan 2 GB, 5, 10, so much, depending on how much you want to pay. And I think this is starting to become a trend between some of the bigger companies. Some of the other ones are trying to go the other way and use that as a selling benefit. I have some pretty strong opinions on these shared data plans, but before I start beaking off about it, wanted to know what your guys' thoughts were on this. I know, Mike, you had mentioned at the beginning. What's your thoughts, Mike?
I think Verizon CFO is an idiot. I think geez.
That's a strong word, idiot.
I would say something worse than that, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. I mean, the whole idea though is shared data is supposed to save you money. And I actually had a lengthy discussion with somebody about this, and yeah, if you're someone that doesn't actually use that much data, and you actually know how much data you use, then yeah, if there's maybe 1 or 2 people on your plan, you can save money. But for families, it's going to cost a lot more money with these shared data plans. And for him to say unlimited is just a word is just it's bullshit. I mean, it's just complete bullshit.
Matt, you got something you want to chime in on that?
I think for a good number of users, they probably don't. understand like how much data they're using. If it's, you know, somebody's using a BlackBerry for that matter, or somebody's using a, you know, 90% of iPhone users keep their Wi-Fi on 100% of the time. So if you're on Wi-Fi, you might never hit that data cap. The problem is when you're marketing LTE phones and you're marketing data speeds, and then you're telling them that they have no real use of 5 to 10 gigabytes or unlimited data plans, when you're now you can FaceTime over your network, or you're downloading movies, music, or, you know, if you're like a lot of Americans or wherever you're from, you're at the airport, you're watching movies. I just think it's ridiculous. Now, my question isn't so much. It's more of how is it that Verizon and AT&T can put such restriction on data when you have Sprint and T-Mobile that's offering it up for free?
Because they're greedy, and they're the largest carriers, and they're forcing this upon their
Well,
youth.
there's so many people already with them and stuck in a 2-year contract. It's like, you know, well, you can't, if you go anywhere, you're just going to have to pay out the ass, so you're kind of stuck with us. And the thing is, like with Sprint and T-Mobile offering unlimited data, like if Sprint themselves were to get rid of unlimited, they would be gone, because Sprint, their selling point is unlimited.
Exactly. And I mean, I think a lot of this too has a lot to do with the bait and switch type of mentality. Like the used car salesman is, you know, the mentality that the CFO is trying to pass on to the consumers, that you don't really need this. What you really need is this instead, so we can make some more money on it. So this is what you should take, because you don't really need all that. But what they're doing is they're failing to kind of tell them about the important part of how this is going to affect them. And the important part of this is how it's going to affect them down the road. Because we are becoming very dependent on data. Data is becoming a huge part of our lives. We are, you know, whether it's through work or entertainment, we're watching movies, you know, we're communicating with our work. A couple of years ago, your data plan compared to your data now, I am sure has probably increased by a 3-fold, and that would be just even for the average consumers. Now, what's going to happen in 3 years from now? How much more data are you going to be using in 3 years from now? A lot more.
Yeah,
Now,
the whole model is completely fucked up, because the faster speeds you get, the more data you should be allowed to have. But now, the faster speed you get, the more we're going to restrict you, and if you go over, we're going to charge you. Yes, a lot of people probably don't use that much data, but there's also a lot of people, millions of people, that use more than a gig or 2 each month, and now they're going to have to pay out the ass for it. And there's no way around it, unless they switch to another carrier.
They're going to be paying more in the future as well, because, like I was saying, the consumption, everyone's consumption's going up. And they're lowering their tiers, the amount of data that they're allowing you to use. So in a couple of years, they're going to say, you know, you're on your 2 gigabyte plan. Well, 2 gigabyte plan is going to be the, you know, the bottom of the barrel entry level, you know, maybe for the 3-year-olds type of data plans. That, you know, and where is it going to be in a few years? You're going to be paying more. It's almost like a gasoline type of monopoly that they're using with data plans in order to extract more money out of the consumers, to fill their pockets, and to basically increase their sales is through data consumption, because they know that the mobile users are becoming more and more reliant on data, that they have no choice but to drive their cars or consume data. And they can charge you what they want. And the only choice you have is to go with Sprint or T-Mobile, which have maybe a little bit of subpar networks in comparison to AT&T and Verizon. So this is almost like a bullying tactic that if you really want quality service, you're really going to pay for it.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add, though, it's not, okay, yes, it's a lot of the carrier's fault, but a lot of it is consumers. There's a lot of people that are simply not fighting back. They're so used to getting, you know, fucked over with stuff that they're just like, oh, well, Verizon upped their prices and changed this. Well, there's nothing I can do about it. So, and they just remain complacent about it, and they don't really, fight back or anything. They're just, oh well, prices went up again. Things happen. It's normal.
And that is a true for a fact. My wife is a lover of Verizon, and God bless their quality network. But one of the problems is she's been on them for so long. So many people, I've been with them, for 10 years. Oh, they did great. Never have any problems. You don't have any problems. Maybe you should look at your bill compared to other networks. That's where the problem is. You're paying through your teeth from it. And the only way that Verizon is going to get the message is by people saying, you know what, I don't want to pay that. There's a certain amount of money I'm willing to pay for my data every month, and Verizon is pushing that limit, and I'm going to make a choice and send a message to them by switching carriers. At the end of the day, I think that's really the only way anybody can do anything about it.
That's interesting. I was actually comparing my bill from Verizon to what I have now, and I have T-Mobile, and I had unlimited both with everything. I got grandfathered in with Verizon. Even being grandfathered, my bill as an individual is $35 more a month to be on Verizon than it is to be on T-Mobile. And I don't know, living in a metropolitan area, which an increasing amount of people are, there's absolutely no difference in coverage. Actually, I get better reception at T-Mobile in a lot of places I couldn't get Verizon.
Well, it is amazing. My wife's bill, she went up to the new shared data plan, and her bill jumped up $20 a month. Less data, and went up $20 a month.
And I'd like to add, a lot of people's bills are probably like that, and $20 a month doesn't seem like much until you factor in that you're on a 2-year contract, and then 20 times 24, and that's the extra money that you could be putting towards rent or whatever, but you can't because they upped it.
Exactly. Alex, you're on AT&T, and they do data shared plans as well, and you said you're at the end of your data allotment, and now you're going to be paying an extra $15 per gigabyte to go over now.
I have like 2 more days left on my billing cycle, so it's not that big of a deal.
But is this starting to affect on what you're thinking about who you're going to be going with for your next carrier?
Sort of. I'm kind of between T-Mobile and Sprint right now because of the unlimited, and even the HSPA Plus fees on AT&T are fast enough for me right now.
So it's but it's definitely something that's already on your mind, and you're a power Android user, and you're thinking about changing up.
Yeah, but I have like a 1.5 years left.
Oh, so you're not going to be changing up anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that, Alex. You're going to be paying for that AT&T quality service. All right, guys, let's move on to our next topic. Our next topic is our arch nemesis, Apple.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, we need to get some sound bites in for them. The dark side, and Apple is seeking a further $707 million. Not too much. Some spare change.
I've got that under my mattress.
You got a big mattress. Must be a California king.
Yes.
And they're also looking at a permanent injunction against Samsung Devices. I read the number somewhere about 29 devices in total. This is just getting amazing.
And you know what? Apple can do it. They can. Hey, they could say they want to sue Samsung for $18 billion, and it would still go to court because hey, it's Apple.
Well, I'm going to throw out here. Let's get out some facts before we start debating it. They'd like to see an increase to seek, near the $3 billion probably is what they would like to, because I think that was the max damages that the court had ordered as the high-end spectrum. And but right now they're looking at $707 million, making the total a $1.756 billion. I mean, just ridiculous. I don't even think that they should get anything near what those damages are. You know, it goes back to the court case, but I think where some of the problems is that they're really going after Samsung, and they're hitting at them super hard. They're looking to basically, in a sense, cripple their competition. Now, they had said a couple of things. These are quotes made by the Apple lawyer saying that the evidence shows that Samsung is now Apple's largest smartphone competitor in the world. They're rapidly becoming Apple's largest competitor in the US market. And Apple notes, citing documents from the earlier patent case, that the direct competition extends particularly to consumers who are looking to make first-time smartphone purchases, who both account for a major proportion of the new Apple and Samsung customers and are a highly coveted group. Now, it comes up again in another discussion there of losing future and downstream sales. It says the court has recognized that this is a critical transition period for the mobile phone market because a large number of the potential customers are abandoning feature phones for smartphones. Now, these first-time smartphone purchases are likely to develop brand and platform loyalty that will affect future sales and market share for years to come, which makes them harmful to Apple from the loss of follow-on and downstream sales, particularly severe. Now, that sounds like, you know, some mumbo-jumbo in there, but that is a clear message, and as I see it, that Apple is using this court system because they are in fear of Samsung and the products they are putting out to be losing potential customers and current customers because of their quality of Samsung's devices, and they're using this court patent lawsuit favoritism to their benefit, so they can somewhat dominate, cripple, or stop innovation in the marketplace to benefit themselves. Now,
the verbiage there. Now I've read a number of things on publications, people dissecting this, and the one thing you have to recognize is their phrase. They say that these customers are a highly coveted group and that this is a critical transition period for the mobile market because people are leaving feature phones for smartphones. This is basically Apple admitting that they're trying to establish a monopoly over the smartphone sales. And they're trying to use the legal system to establish that beachhead so that they can force out all competition. It's the same thing Standard Oil did over 100 years ago. And that didn't fly then. I just don't understand how it can fly now. But our system is now geared to support this, whereas before we had Teddy Roosevelt who took them on because it was really just anti-competitive and terrible for consumers.
Yes, Monopoly is not a game anymore. It's real life, and yeah, there's all these laws against monopolies, but looks like Apple's trying to run one.
they definitely are, and I mean they're using this, lawsuit victory and taking their lawyers and pushing it as far as it can go, and potentially even abusing the verdict for their own personal gains. I mean, in retrospect, if you were to, what would be proper to take place from this? Obviously, we'll get into the court thing here in just a minute, but the proper thing would obviously to allow Samsung to make adjustment to their devices so they no longer infringed upon the patents that were in claim, and an award judgment, for potential damages that would take place. Apple is looking to have these devices completely banned from the marketplace, which is monopolizing it, and it is clearly abusing the patent system, the laws, and the court system as well. Now, there's another thing that has just kind of broke out earlier today. Actually, just recently, Samsung is raising jury misconduct in a bid for a new trial. Excuse me. Samsung lists cases in which the juror misconduct outside materials, deliberations, and they want this to lead to a new trial. You know, after a jury foreman revealed discussed his patents with other jurors as well too. And I think, you know, and from my own personal, you know, obviously we're a pro Android, you know, news site, podcast, and you know, that's our personal devices of choice. But there was a lot of things that rubbed me wrong through the entire Samsung Apple trial, where there seemed to be some favoritism towards Apple just in the court, and you know, both of them really pushed some of the stuff. And at the end of the day, a lot of these patents that were, you know, disputed, I don't really think that the jurors had a very good grasp of what they were dealing with. They were given kind of the basics on it. Some of the stuff was over their head. Some of the patents are over the head of us. And, you know, we do this as a living, and, you know, we're very passionate, obsessive about it. And some of these patents were a little even over our heads as to, you know, who should be right, who should be wrong. And I really have a hard time believing how some of the jurors could actually make educated decisions on these patents and where they belong, you know, and should they not be friend patents as well. And on top of that, I was actually very surprised at how quickly a decision was reached by the jurors to come up with a verdict, and it was an extremely lengthy questionnaire that they were put through on the damages, the verdicts, the patents, and you know, it just seems like that these were the wrong people making the decisions for a billion-dollar industry.
No, you're right. There's definitely, from reading everything about it, the jurors definitely didn't have enough knowledge about patents to deal with the case. And also, I even talked with friends of mine who are diehard, you know, iPhone users, and they were like, "Whoa!" They reached a, the court reached a decision. The jury reached a decision that fast. It was all really fishy, you know. Just didn't seem right.
I'm applying for this next week. It's my patent for a rounded square.
Oh, I've already patented that. So sorry.
I think I'm going to sue you for that because I have something in my house that's rounded that
I have a small team.
What's your opinion on this, Matt? What's your opinion with this whole trial? And what are your thoughts on Samsung bid for a new trial?
I think you have to. You saw some of my scathing articles about Miss Lucy Coe. I thought towards the end she was kind of evolving. She seemed to kind of get a little frustrated with both of them. But you know, ultimately, the jury, I think it was a foreman, admitted that because he himself had a patent for, you know, widgets and goodness or whatever the hell he's done with his life, that he somehow felt a personal connection with Apple, and he felt that it was his obligation to defend their patents for, you know, rounded icons, rounded rectangles. The whole thing was preposterous. And I think I even wrote another article about how Apple had photoshopped a particular tablet to look more like the iPad, where they stretched the aspect ratio of it to make it look like it. I mean, it was a dog and pony show, and I think if you look at the international results of a lot of these Apple versus the world trials, and you see that Apple's not winning a ton of them, I think it's more demonstrative of just how tainted our jury pool is. If you put this in front of a panel of a few judges who hopefully never have owned a smartphone, then you see a completely different result. They throw it out. You just can't patent common sense stuff. How else are you going to make a phone? I mean, are we going to have phones that are octagons? I just don't understand how else you're going to do it. So you patent common sense. You know, it's like, don't step in dog shit. Apple has a patent for that. If you don't step in dog shit, you've like violated their patent. They sue you. You're supposed to step in it now. It's preposterous to me.
We might go the route of like on The Office where they debuted the triangle tablet.
Exactly. I mean, you know, the part of the problem is a lot of the jurors did not understand, you know, and some of the way that the judge as well had that court running at first was a bit of a circus in my eyes, and I don't think that, you know, the one obviously dominant juror, Hogan, that owned patents himself and took, you know, the rest of the jurors through the experience and his own personal opinion of, you know, how they should come up with a decision, and just how quickly the ruling came through, the you know, the amount of the judgment, plus as well, you know, just the sheer complete dominance of Apple on all fronts of some of the patents. I'm not going to, you know, breaking down to which ones should have, you know, gone which way, but there were definitely some that were, you know, potentially had, you know, Apple's favor, and some that definitely had Samsung's favors in that. And a mistrial, or at least, you know, taking this, you know, to another court level or something is definitely got to be done, because in my eyes, I think this first trial was definitely a farce and skewed. And hopefully we see a better system in place if they're going to take this to court, because these jurors have no business making the decisions. I mean, would you let strangers off the street decide how your business is going to be run, or how your business should be conducted in the future, or the technologies used in your business? And would you want to rely upon them to make the, you know, proper decisions?
And the location of this could just not be more preposterous to me. I mean, it's like, it's equivalent to a Chinese kid suing KFC because he gained a lot of weight off their fried chicken, but them holding the trial in Kentucky. I mean, you can't do this down the street. It's just completely unfair.
And you're in
let's look at the facts, guys. Okay, clearly Samsung is hurting Apple's sales, because the iPhone 5 has sold over 5 million units so far. So clearly Samsung is having an effect, a huge effect on their sales.
Yes. I think Apple's having effect on their own sales with Apple Maps.
Oh, God. Is that on your list of things to talk about?
That's on my list of things to talk about. Alex, you did the original story on the maps. What's the deal on that? What was going on?
They suck.
They suck. Did you see?
Plain and simple.
Well, what's the problem with the maps?
Well, I haven't used them myself.
No, and God forbid you ever have to, but
for what I've heard and seen, some of the web links actually go back to the web app for Google Maps, and the flyover that they added in iOS 6 maps. It doesn't work.
It's all screwed up. Like there's like roads where roads aren't supposed to be. You know, like the actual. If you try and like do like 3D views, those are all messed up. And like I even saw one image of where a city looked like a nuclear wasteland, and there's just all sorts of stuff messed up. And there was even people who they get information for a place and would call that place, and it's a totally different place. So it's all messed up.
The steak house that was on second base field in a baseball stadium, that was my favorite so far. So if you're rounding second there, you can stop in and get a steak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen a government building, and it was labeled as Kentucky Fried Chicken. So you know things are going really well there with that. And if you're looking at the maps, they're scary looking, and they look like, you know, California just had a major earthquake and is sank into the ocean on some of them. And you know, and then this is the part of the city that's still left for you to be able to drive around in. It's horrendous, and you would think, you know, Apple will give them some credit. You know, they make some fine products on their own right, and you know, some with some nice you know, polish. And you got to admit, somebody's getting fired at Apple over this Apple mess.
I mean, look what Siri was when they brought it out. They're just hiding behind this veil of beta. That's how long can you do that? Google products, at least when they're in beta and you get your hands on them, they look like they're ready to be released, at least for the most part. And beta's if it doesn't work, just don't release it. Do you hate Google that badly?
It's really scary that they put this product out though that botched.
Well, considering it's Apple, Apple usually when they release something, it's usually really good. They want it to be really good, and for this to be that screwed up, like clearly they had to have known. They had to have known.
I know how
Apple Maps were screwed up before they released it. They had to.
Somebody just happened to find a bug in there so luckily and so easily, and it was so messed up. It was just one city that was terribly messed up.
Yeah, that would be different, but tons of people are having issues, so clearly they knew about this, and they just said, we'll just send it out anyway, and we'll fix it once it's out there. Which is very unlike them. I mean, if Steve Jobs, we're going to go back to that. If Steve Jobs was still around, he would be just rolling. He would be cutting off heads right now for Apple if Apple was to release something like this, and he was still, as CEO. If you ever read there was a biography about him by Sir I forget the guy's name, but basically he talked about what happened when there was issues with MobileMe, and those issues weren't nearly as bad as it is with Apple Maps. So. They had to have known about it, but their whole thing with Google, they don't want to have anything to do with Google, and we're just like, hey, we're going to do this ourselves, but it really backfired.
I gotta say that I think they pulled Google Maps a little too early from the App Store, and they should have waited for the iPhone 5S before they decided to release it. And, I guess they have a hard time. Google Maps is the master, and, they got 7,000 people running Google Maps in total employed, and to compete with that is a whole new business. All as I can say is I'm looking forward to when Apple gets into the search business. That's going to be fun.
iSearch.
Have you guys heard of some of the excuses for iMaps or whatever that what it's called? iMaps, well, that's what we're calling it. I've heard some people actually come to its defense. The whole it gets better with more people using it, the fact that it's vector-based, it's more fluid. I mean, are there redeeming qualities to it that we're just not looking at?
I'm sure it's really good, but it's not working.
That's not ready.
That's the big problem.
It's not ready.
It's not ready.
And I think Apple's done more harm than good on themselves.
I mean, I can totally understand them wanting to get away from Google Maps, but with launching a new phone and then throwing this out there, it's complete shit. Like, if you're gonna throw something out there, at least make it work. So it's very unlike them. It's interesting.
They should send you a free atlas with every iPhone.
Yeah.
just in case.
A link to Google Maps on the web, which they're doing.
Yeah, Google is.
I've heard that there's links to the Google Maps on web. Because that's how bad things are. But anyways, that's what happens when you wait a year for a new iPhone. Things aren't quite so perfect because it takes them a whole year and they have to rush things to get it out the door. Anyways, guys, let's talk about a real device. Let's talk about some real fun devices that are going to be coming that the Maps are going to be working on. That is the new Nexus 5 device rumors. Wow, we've been waiting for this all year long. Finally, it is time. It is time for some new Nexus devices to come out. We are going to be seeing crazy amounts of rumors. Some you can take with a grain of salt. Some are going to be fact. Some you're going to see are going to be in the actual products, and it's going to be our job to decipher between all of the rumors and see which is fact and fiction. Today, we have new Android device rumor based on the HTC Droid Incredible X. Now, Alex was on this story here, and this seems to be, Alex, the same device that we were talking about last week. The HTC One X5 has now magically turned into a Nexus device. What's going on there?
It's also turned into a Verizon Droid Incredible device.
Oh my God! This is a 3-in-1 device. That's how great it is.
It's 5 inches at 1080p.
I mean, no doubt this is an awesome device. It looks great. It's got that red on there, which, a little bit of Verizon red. And according to GSM Arena, who broke the story today, sources claim that this is going to be a 4th generation Nexus device and would launch with Android 4.1.2, 0.5.3, 0.9.7.
Anyways, jelly beans, or what do you call that?
I don't know if it's going to be jelly beans. When will it be released? 3 months down the road? If that's Verizon. Anyways, let's see what's going on. We'll get into a little more here first. Who knows about what it'll exactly be released on it? I think that's a topic for another show. But some of the specs, the 5-inch display with a nice 1080p, 12 megapixel camera, 2500 milliamp battery as well. And, in terms of names, we're not really sure exactly what it could be. As we said, Incredible 4, could be a Nexus 5, could be a 7, but it would be really nice to see HTC, after all the trouble that they've had in the past kind of year with their sales and financial, to get back to another Nexus device. Maybe give Samsung a little bit of a run of money for making Nexus devices as well, and throw out something a little fresh, as they were talking about that there's a potential to be 5 Nexus devices. Now, we already have, the Nexus 7s out. Can we count that ball thing that came out as an actual Nexus device?
Well, it was called the Nexus Q, so I guess we have to.
It never really came out, though.
Never
yeah,
really
well,
came
yeah,
out.
that's... Oh, yeah, that's true.
The shortest device launch in history of smartphone devices. Didn't even make it a month. Didn't even make it. I don't even think they shipped anything. Anyways, who knows? So we're talking at least about 3 phones coming out for sure. Possibly more. Depends, on how far they want to take this Nexus 5 lineup. The other device that we're talking about on top of that is they're talking about the LG Optimus G could perhaps be another Nexus device, which is a nice, Snapdragon Dragon S4 processor, running 1.5 in there with Creighton LTE, as well. It's a 4.7 True HD IPS panel on there with 32 gigabytes, 2 gigabytes of RAM in there, 13 megapixel camera, 2100 milliamp as well battery. These are both, by the looks of it, 2 pretty hot devices that probably would be, worthy of the Nexus branding. What do you guys think on them? What's your thought on these Nexus S devices? Matt, let's go to you right away. Let's put you on the spot. What's your thoughts on them?
Well, first of all, I'm looking at some of these specs that, let's see, Alex had picked up, and some of the rumored specs about this HTC phablet, whatever you want to call it, device, with it being true 1080p or 1080, you're looking at 440 PPI, which blows away the Retina display, and that would be, to me, that's huge. That's just probably the one feather in our cap we haven't got as Android fans, is a better display than the iDevices. I see a quad-core Snapdragon. I'm excited to see how that really would take on your Tegra 3 in the real world. I know it's been kind of rumored as being better and faster, but once you toss in real-world applications and battery life. But I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I want a 5-inch Nexus device. I mean, here's a little comparison. Here's the original Motorola Droid Incredible. This is the Galaxy S2. I mean, it's substantially, it doesn't look as big on camera. I thought it was going to be more impressive than that. But, like a 4.3-inch device, 4.5, I mean, that's more than enough device.
A 5-inch device?
I know you're a fan of your phablets. I just...
What if you have big hands?
Exactly. Now, I mean, you know, in all fairness, though, Matt, it's kind of nice that they're going to cover, you know, the 5-inch phablet, you know, which is obviously, it's becoming a new emerging market for smartphones for popularity, plus the 4.7, and we don't even know what Samsung's going to drop with their Premier, which is, excuse me, it's supposed to be a dual core, which I'm a little bit surprised. I don't think that those rumors would be true, because a Nexus S device coming out now, dual core, just doesn't make sense to me. If we're going to see a Nexus device out of Samsung, we're probably going to see a quad core, something very close to what they're throwing in the Note.
Forget quad core. I want octa-core.
Yes, yes, exactly.
We need more power because clearly this is not enough.
Well, I mean,
dual core it lasts me for 3 weeks without charging. I mean, you know, I don't even need raw specs. You know, honestly, if you just ask me what I want with a Nexus device, is just crazy good battery life.
And I think that's what everybody wants, is they want some serious battery life. What do you want to see in your next Nexus device, Alex? What
Honestly,
really makes it for you?
Like a Razer Max type Nexus with what 3,300 milliamp battery.
Definitely. That I would love. I mean, if we're talking dream devices here, I think no less than a quad core in these devices, 2 gigabytes of RAM to make sure that it can run all the processes, and as well, obviously a 3,200 milliamp battery would be beautiful. I don't know if we'll see that, but a huge battery. I mean, a couple of last year, you know, the Samsung Nexus was a great device as well, but you know, I would really love to see that these new devices kind of set the benchmark for new devices, you know, for the rest of the year, instead of kind of coming out at the end of the year and being kind of the best of the past year. I'd rather it see being the benchmark for what phones should be aiming for in the next year, you know, and definitely see, you know, pushing the specs, you know, to the farthest, because last year kind of the specs were, you know, as good as other phones that were already out there on the market. So it would be definitely nice. And I think out of these OEMs that are going to be putting out the Nexus device, whoever puts out, you know, the best specs is going to be the best, is going to get the best sales. Now,
I'm sorry. Yeah, what comes after a quad core though? You know, how do you get a 3 gigahertz phone?
You get a server.
I think it goes. I think it would go from quad core to like 6 core. Because that's how like desktop processors are. They went from quad core.
But as desktops haven't even gone up to the 6 processors yet. I think.
I mean, I picked one of those up a while ago, but that's a really recent development. I mean, how do you power that? I guess
the reality though is that quad core is more than enough power for probably 98% of users. I would say that probably 98% of people will never even use a quad core mobile processor to its absolute limit.
No, and I totally agree with that.
But we all want the biggest and the fastest thing. So once something comes out beyond quad core, people are like, oh, this my phone, it's got like a 1.5 gigahertz quad core processor, but I want that new one with 6 cores. It's way better.
Well, I think like in computers, we are not going to be seeing 6 cores coming anytime soon, and if we do, it's down the road. I think like computers though, we are probably going to see a lot more RAM starting to show up in these phones, because if that's one thing where these apps are starting to take, is that they're going to consume more RAM, and that memory on the phone is going to need to be increased. 2 gigabytes seems like is what I feel should be running now. So maybe next year we're going to start to maybe see that, that's going to be where we're going to start to see some of the hardware gains are. There's going to be in the RAM, improved RAM quality as well too. Some of this nano RAM, whatever the hell that Samsung has working, that is going to process a little faster the memory as well too. Because I think the CPU is kind of getting to the point where it's kind of maxing out. Now we also as well could see some faster GPU because gaming is starting to grow super fast. The graphics are going really high end. We're starting to match up with quality of PC units is what's in the horizon. And in order to be able to do that, they're definitely going to need to stick in better GPUs, which is going to be a feat in itself because of the heat dissipation that is going to need to be taking place from the back of these phones. Wow, that's going to be one hot smartphone, literally, in order to push these
All you have to do is
farther.
just put your phone in a cup of ice. That'll cool it down.
Liquid cooled Android smartphones.
Yes.
See it next year, Mobile World Conference.
There will be like a case you just slide your phone in, and then it has the liquid cooling that goes around it.
Guys are already overclocking their phones. I think, Alex, you're overclocking your phone, aren't you?
I overclocked it for a little bit to 2.1 gigahertz on my S3, but I put it back down.
How did that run? How stable was that?
It was pretty good. I've known some other people using the same kernel that's overclocked it.
How far have they pushed it?
2.106.
So maybe we're going to start to see larger, faster processing times. Right now we're kind of at 1.5 to 2 gigahertz. Maybe we're going to see these guys push them up to 3, more RAM. What about memory? Do you guys think with this? Are we going to see a return to some larger memory in the next year as well?
I don't know. I think 2 gigabytes that's pretty good.
I'm sorry, I meant storage space.
Oh, storage space.
I think more RAM is needed, definitely, personally myself. But about storage spaces, because this is kind of where we get into a gray area here now with all the online and cloud storage that's taking place. But there doesn't, how do you store those apps? You can't really store them in the cloud yet, which you would think that's coming, but that also has a lot to do with data, tying back to, data usage. Is that something we see coming? Or are we still going to be with the onboard storage? Any thoughts on that, Matt?
I don't see. Oh.
Well, you go ahead, Mike. Go ahead first. We'll hit Matt after.
No, I was just saying I don't think storage is really going to change too much because the emphasis and the push is for the cloud and all that stuff. But yeah, then we don't really have unlimited data. But of course, when we did have unlimited data, unlimited was just a word. It didn't really mean anything.
Yes, unlimited is just a word.
Yes, but I still see the push for uploading your stuff to the cloud and that, and I don't really see more storage coming to phones, necessarily.
I mean, I'd love to. I mean, I remember back in the day having the Nexus 1 and having terrible time with having to remove apps so I could throw on other apps, and then moving on eventually up to 8 gigabytes, which is not too bad. But the app sizes are starting to grow, and they're starting to grow quite a bit. And so you're going to start to see, apps, at 4 gigabytes soon. It won't be far off when one of these games out there is going to throw 4 gigabytes at your phone. And for some people, that's going to fill up a lot of space when, you're only looking between, 8, 16 gigabytes of internal memory.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that's coming because Google has, increased the allotment size to the size of apps now, and guys are going to be pushing the envelope. Where do you see that fitting in, Matt?
I mean, it's hard to say. 16 and 32 has been a standard for probably, a lot of what you max your phone out at. I think Samsung's pushing to get a lot of their newer devices up to 128 with micro SD. The problem with that is it does take amount of space. I think what we're going to see probably as the quad-core processors start to kind of level off and there's only so far they can go, is things are going to get smaller, less power hungry. I mean, it fits into Moore's law. The transistors get smaller, the space in between, because if you look at what Intel is doing in a PC world versus what we're seeing in a mobile, the mobile processors are just, they suck juice. They have huge gaps in between the transistors. I think, we're just going to see them. Storage space is storage space. There's only so much you can cram in there. RAM, I think we'll see 2 and 4 gigs probably next year on some big devices. And hopefully they can tune these processors up and get their foundries a little bit more efficient, so we're not. I'd like to make it 12 hours without even thinking about charging. I'd like to make it a week without it. But that's
that too. Definitely, I think one of the areas in the smartphone market that has not innovated as quickly with the technology is definitely the batteries. The processors, the GPUs, the RAM, the software. The hardware's leap by bounds, but the one thing kind of holding it back is the battery devices. And there's only so much they can maybe push with the current technology, or it's something that really hasn't been addressed. But I mean, I remember at times, getting 4 hours out of my smartphone, and that's just embarrassing. I mean, you have to basically walk around, plugged in all the time, and people, they want to leave in the morning with their phones, come back after shopping from work at night, and not have to plug in their phones. And until, they can get 12 hours of solid use, and I mean heavy use has to definitely be part of it because we are using these phones more and more every day. I want to be able to watch a movie, stream some YouTube, send my emails out, download an app, play a game, whatever the hell I got to do, and not be looking at my phone battery. I don't want to be looking at my phone battery till I go to bed at night.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the days of nuclear fission powered phones that last for the full life of your device and cause tumors and all this stuff. You never have to charge them.
They came out with a dual core device with a gig of RAM that had a 5,000 milliamp battery and charged me $800 for it this year. I'd buy it. I'd gladly pay that just to not even worry about battery. When I go camping and I get bored.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that if you have a bigger battery, that means your phone's going to be way bigger. But we saw what Motorola did with the Razr Max. They managed to get a big battery, over 3,000 milliamp an hour, which is almost more than double than a lot of phones out there, and they kept it thin. So clearly, we can get batteries
there.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder. HTC, when was it? Earlier in the year, said that they talked to the customers, and the customers were more interested in style than battery life. I'm not sure exactly who that was. That may have been the guy from HTC who bought Beats Audio, who's no longer with them.
They might have actually talked to
survey. Yes.
They might have actually been talking to iPhone users.
Yeah, they could have been. That could have been. But battery is a huge thing, and what's quite surprising is that you see what Motorola did. And why is it the other phone makers are just starting to get their asses in gear with these batteries?
American-made phones.
Exactly.
Maybe you said about having American-made again. I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. It is Motorola, but maybe.
So let's get back to our Nexus devices. We pretty well, beaten down what we'd like to see as in our dream, Nexus devices, or where we'd like to see the technology in. That HTC Droid Incredible X. Now, we had seen last week, I think it was, Alex, you had talked about the phone, and it was showing up in a Verizon leaked map that it was supposed to show up for them. Or no, it was Mike. Mike, you had done the story. Sorry, Mike. You had done the story that this Droid X is supposed to come to Verizon, right? And now this Droid X is supposed to be a new Nexus device. Which is it?
It's confusing.
It's both?
Yeah, it's odd because like when I did the article, it was the HTC Incredible X, and then now they're talking about it's going to be a Nexus device, and I don't think we really know exactly what it's going to be yet. It's going to be either or.
It's still very early in the Nexus rumor stage. So, things could definitely change up before then. So we may have been, well, looking at a Nexus device. Maybe Verizon was hiding it as an Incredible X, possibly. Or maybe it's because Google doesn't want them to have a Google Experience device, so their HTC device is going to be an Incredible X.
Either way, whatever it's going to be called, that's the screen. I mean, way better, way more PPI than the iPhone Retina display. I mean, it looks pretty sweet.
Now I'm kind of actually, and I know LG has not really had a whole lot of super success in North America recently, as we talked about it last week. This new phone coming out, their Optimus G, potentially could be branded a Nexus device, which it's definitely got the specs for it, and it would be a great way for them to break into the North American market with the branding of a Nexus. Definitely has some good quality specs, nice looking phone. We'll see when it comes out. Another one that we've heard as well now, on top of that, is the Samsung, I think it was it called the Premier or something like that, which didn't have a lot of super great specs. So I'm still wondering if that one's an actual device that we're going to see, or just some early rumors taking place. I would like to see Motorola and Sony in there. Hell, I think they all should build a Nexus device, and whoever wins, why not? I mean, Sony's been thrown around as possibly another device maker that could be throwing in a Nexus device. Do you think having too many Nexus devices is going to water it down, or is a little competition for the Nexus device a good thing?
I think it's a good thing, but yeah, I think there's a possibility of it being a little bit watered down. But speaking of Sony, I've liked Sony's designs on their phones. They've really seemed a lot different from the other phones out there, but they're not doing as well as say Samsung. They just haven't been able to gain as much market share. It's kind of sad.
Any comments, Matt, on Sony being involved in the mix? How do you feel about that?
In all honesty, Samsung has really squandered their opportunity with the Nexus devices. As much as I appreciate the Galaxy Nexus and the Nexus S, compared to HTC's build quality, it's just not there. I think the bidding process is a good way to do it. I don't want to see it be diluted among so many carriers. I would just rather see Google focus on a Motorola Nexus device, since it's already in-house. And they're already stripping away all that Moto bullshit that they have skinned their devices with. So I mean, it seems like a natural step. You have phones that have decent specs. They're shipping them unlocked bootloaders now. They're taking away all that nasty UI that Motorola thought was nice, but it wasn't. And they're right in your backyard. Why not just ship out a really super high quality device that'll stand up for a year and not be obsolete in 6 months?
Could part of the problem be that they're too busy working on the ICS for the Bionic? No, and you know what? It makes sense. I think one of the problems is Google doesn't want to look too much favoritism with throwing them a Nexus device right off. And it kind of sounds like Motorola is still getting their house in order over there, and I kind of wonder if that could be a problem why we don't see the Motorola into the Nexus mix. But you're definitely right, they're on the right track, and maybe some of their devices are going to be Nexus-esque type of devices, that they're already going along that Google experience mentality, because nothing is stopping any of the other manufacturers from throwing a stock Android on their phone, and taking away the bloatware crap that they throw on these phones. No one's stopping them. That's their choice. You don't have to have a Nexus device in order to do that. So we definitely could see Motorola starting to gear that way, and it would be really nice to see that consumers have an option, that they don't have to take on bloatware when selecting an Android device. Sony, one of the problems with Sony that they've kind of lacked a little bit in some of the hardware department with their past devices. not sure how closely you guys paid attention to the Sony, because it's not as large in North American market. When I was living up in Canada, they were pretty heavy with Rogers, and consistently their devices were coming out with almost like 6 months behind in the hardware spec and stuff like that. Although there are some new rumored Sony devices that are coming on par with it. And they do have some, very nice looking designs, build quality, and they've just had a hard time making a name for themselves in the North American market. Very popular in Europe. So maybe a Nexus device is going to, propel them into the North American market, give them some exposure among Sony. What's your thought on, Alex, on a Sony Nexus device? Excite you at all?
A little bit, because what was that Xperia device that JBQ was working on getting AOSP on there for? Was it the Xperia S?
Yeah, and they also have the Xperia T's coming as well too, and Arcos, which are pretty nice looking devices, and they do have a pretty good build quality, different look to it.
And if Sony cooperates with JBQ with getting AOSP Android on there, I think they're right in line to get a Nexus device. Even if they don't get one this year, maybe the next time they release Nexus devices.
Well, I think we're going to definitely see something from Sony coming out. I mean, the rumor's been out there. Hopefully we're going to get some more. We'll be covering this weekly, because I think there's going to be more information coming out every week as we go.
I will say, Chris, I am definitely looking forward to the Samsung Transformer Galaxy Prime Blaze Lightning 4G.
LTE.
LTE. Yes. Is that your new device, Mike?
Yes.
Great. Just a quick little hit note here. Soon we'll move on from the Nexus. Did you guys have a chance, I know Alex did, to take a look at that LG Optimus View 2, however you want to say it? It's coming with 2 gigabytes of RAM, and as well, it's supposedly going to be a 5-inch device as well, once again, and an S4 on it, dual-core device, 2 gigabytes of RAM. Doesn't look a whole lot different than the one that they've released already. Alex, you covered the story. Is there anything different really on this thing?
The screen is the exact same resolution. Not really, because it's coming with ice cream sandwich and not jelly bean.
Wow, so it's exactly the same. The only thing difference is the 2 gigabytes of RAM, right?
Yeah, I believe that's the only difference.
It's it's amazing that they've the phone has it's now the LG Intuition here on Verizon, so it'll probably see Jelly Bean in 2014. But this device kind of come out, and I have a little bit of mixed views on it. It's got a little bit of a weird screen size. The aspect ratio on it makes it a little look weird. It looks like you're kind of carrying a small brick. I'm not sure how well it's doing in Europe and Asian market. It must be doing well enough that they think that there's demand for a number 2, because it just dropped in North America, and I can't say that people are going head over heels for it. But I guess they believe that a number 2 is qualified already, and they got some Korean images ready and all set to go. It looks like the View 2. Which is basically, they haven't upgraded it enough. I mean, they might as well call it the View S or whatever, because it's not really a, huge spec device. Hopefully we'll see it, take on some of the Samsung mentality and drop it on more carriers, so, people can see more LG devices out there. They really have their lack of, dropping their phones in North America, and hopefully we see them on more carriers. Even if we don't really, not fond of the device, still be nice to see it out there and available to more carriers.
Does nobody else think this device looks like it just looks straight up retarded?
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like a square box. I mean,
Clear. I mean, it looks like a black graham cracker. I can't think of any redeeming qualities to this device.
well, I think they patent the square, is what they've done, to avoid Apple litigation. And this is definitely this is what happens when you're in an Apple litigation world. You know, it was the only way that they could avoid not getting sued by Apple. Make it square, make it ugly. Apple's happy. That's how it works.
So is LG Korean? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say this and throw PC out the door, but I'm a pretty large American man with pretty large hands, and a square 5-inch phone is not even gonna fit in my hand. How is that popular in Asia?
You know how
that's a good point.
And you know what? I do have the answer for it, because in most Asian markets, and not to stereotype, but the Asian people can tend to be a little smaller than some of us larger American people. So how they use the phone is like this. This is how it's done. Now in their case, it would be like this. That's how they hold the VOOT. No, you see, you're holding it wrong.
Oh.
You got to be held like this.
Gotcha.
This is how we talk it. They patent this system now to avoid Apple litigation. Two-finger device. Two-finger device.
No, this will kill your reception. So Apple patented that too. So
that's right. So maybe it's just like this, and they text with the little thumbs. Okay. Not to make. This was totally not a race-orientated.
No. It brings up a really good point.
It was a usage conversation.
Yeah, it brings up a really good point because
how it's used.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out, Matt. I'm sure we're going to have lots of fan mail.
The viewership of Android headlines in Asia just went down 15%.
Oh my God!
That's 3 less people from Asia, right?
4.
Hey, don't knock it. We now have, I think there's 10 people in Asia that are following us. Because they use Google Translate. Anyway. Let's get on to our next and our final story. I just wanted to go through our weekly tablet top 10 rankings. Now, for some of you at home that maybe don't know what we do here, is every month we rank the top 10 best Android smartphones and tablets, ranking them accordingly to what we think are the best. Now, what we do is we actually break them down and we put them in a list based on several different factors. And for those of you that have never heard or seen of our rankings, how we do it is we base them based on popularity, specifications, and as well buzz among the Android community. And as well, we also get some input from our crack staff that know these devices, review these devices, or own these devices. And we formulate our top 10 devices, breaking it down from number 10 device all the way down to number 1. Now, I'm going to get started off right away, and our top 10 Android best tablets for the month of September starts off with number 10, the Toshiba Excite 10. Now, this may not be a device that everyone has seen, at their local stores, but it comes with a quadra-core Tegra 3, 1.5, 1 gigabyte of RAM, 10.1 screen, and as well a 2 megapixel front-facing camera, 5 megapixel rear-facing camera. And as well, it also has a 25 watt-hour battery. That's the specs that we have. Number 9 this week is going to be the Motorola XY board 10.1. This has a dual-core 1.2 TIO map 4430, 1 gigabytes of RAM, up to 64 gigabytes of storage, 10.1 screen with IPS display at 149 ppi's, and a 1.3 and 5 megapixel camera with a 7,000 milliamp battery, which is pretty nice. And as well, we also have on here a new entry this week, which is the Acer Iconia Tab A700. A little bit of a shocker to see this one in there, but Tom felt that it was deserving with its quad-core Tegra 3 processor, 1 gigabyte of RAM, up to 64 gigabytes of storage. Has a 1900 by 1200 IPS display, which gives you a 224 PPI, which it does have a fairly decent display with 5 megapixel rear camera 1.3 and a 9800 milliamp battery as well. Now, moving on to the number 7 tablet of the week is the Asus ePad Transformer Prime TF201. It's ranking in at number 7 with its quad-core 1.3. It's got 1 gigabytes of RAM, up to 64 megabytes of storage. It's got a 1200 by 800 Super IPS display coming in at 149 PPI. It's a 10.1-inch screen as well, with a 8 megapixel rear camera, 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera, and overall 25-hour battery. Number 6 is actually a Samsung Galaxy Tab 7 number 2, and this is only comes with a dual-core 1 gigahertz TOMAP 4430, 1 gigabytes of RAM, 7-inch display with a OK 170 PPI, sorry, and it also has a VGA front-facing camera with a 3.2 megapixel rear-facing camera, dual band on there, 4,000 milliamp battery. This one's kind of gotten in there because of its price and its and it fits in the nice 7-inch display. The number 5 tablet this week is the Transformer TF300, made by Asus. Comes with your quad-core Tegra 3, up to 32 gigabytes of storage, 1 gigabyte of RAM, 10.1 screen, 1200 by 800 LCD, 1.2 front-facing, and 8 megapixel camera with a 22 battery wattage in there. Number 4 is a Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1, previously ranked number 2, but has slipped up a bit as there's been a bit of criticism as it has been a little bit of buggy with some of the software, but not too high, still ranked at number 4 with the quad-core Exynos quad processor running in at 1.4 gigahertz with the Mali 400 MP GPU as well. It's got a nice 2 gigabytes of RAM in there, up to 64 gigabytes of storage, 10.1 screen, that's 1280 by 800, and that runs at 149 PPI, and it's got a 5 megapixel front-facing, rear-facing, 1.9 front-facing, and as well it's got a nice 7,000 milliamp battery to go with that. And our number 3 tablet this week comes from the Taiwanese company Asus, once again, with quad-core 3 processor, and that's the Asus Transformer Infinity. 1 gigabyte of RAM, up to 64 gigabytes of storage, and it's got one of those micro SD slots for those of you that have forgotten. It's got a 10.1, 19 by 20, 1200 Super IPS. That's a healthy 224 PPI, and it has an 8 megapixel rear-facing camera and a 2 megapixel front-facing and a 25 watt-hour overall battery, and it's got a nice docking station as well in there. New to our rankings this week is also the Sony Xperia Tablet S. This kind of came out of nowhere as our editor Tom Dawson felt that it was right up there with some of the best, lots of buzz, just recently released. So the Xperia Tablet S, it's got a nice 9.4-inch display running at 1280 by 800, and the resolution is looking very sharp on this device from the initial reviews. From what we've got, it's powered by a Tegra 3, 1 gigabyte of RAM, up to a 64 gigabyte of storage, and as well room for micro SD. The IPS 1280 will give you a 1.61 PPI. It's got an 8 megapixel rear camera, 1 megapixel front, and as well running a 6,000 milliamp battery. Wow, that was a lot. Now, coming off to our final Nexus 7 tablet is ranked #1. How could it
Of
not?
course. Of course.
Best tablet running on the market in terms of price and power contribution, and it's got a nice 1280 display, quadra-core Tegra 3 tablet. It's got 1 GB of RAM, 8 and 16 GB of storage. Wish that was a little bit more, but we won't complain. The display IPS at 216 ppi, only comes with a 1.2 front-facing camera, but it makes up for it in other areas. It's got Corning Gorilla Glass as well. It's got a nice sizable, I think it's a 4325 milliamp battery, and that's been our #1 tablet for the past few months, and I don't see anything upsetting that in our rankings. Anything you guys might want to add in terms of the rankings? What you thought?
No, I think that's pretty good, and it's really no surprise that the Nexus 7 is #1 because, I mean, God's sakes, you can get like a kick-ass, you know, tablet, performance-wise, display-wise, and you know, it's lacking in storage, but for $199, I mean, you can't beat it. There's no beating it yet.
Storage.
Yeah, and I mean, even Amazon came out with their new Kindle Fire HD, and still, it looks like the Nexus 7 still outperforms it.
And it doesn't run a forked version.
Right, right.
What do you got, Matt? What do you got? What did you think on the rankings? Anything a little surprising in there for you?
Well, it's actually funny. I don't know if you guys all have the Nexus 7. Apparently, some of the early models there had problems with the screen kind of coming separated.
They did. That was a reported issue.
Okay, because I actually had that same problem myself yesterday. I noticed it and finally kind of resolved myself to take out the little toolkit, take it apart, and managed to get it tightened. So, you know, outside of that, I haven't had any problems with it. Would I say it's #1? $200, a Nexus device? Absolutely. Would I say it's the best one on there? And if you have just money coming out of your ass? No, I'd probably go with the Infinity personally. But I have the original Transformer, and I have the Nexus 7. It's like, you know, I couldn't be any happier with it. So.
No, definitely, you know, I mean, in our rankings take in several factors that the performance is just, you know, is not necessarily what qualifies a tablet for a ranking of a #1. It's also, you know, overall experience update and everything like that that we take into consideration. And the Infinity is definitely in its own right a great device, and probably not #1 because of maybe some of the Google experience, and as well also the price point. Everyone and their dog or kids on welfare can get themselves a Nexus 7, that's for sure. What do you got, Alex? What are you using right now?
I got a Nexus 7 to go with my Galaxy S3.
There we go. Everyone's got a Nexus 7. If those of you at home don't have a Nexus 7, now's the time to buy one. Because they're about to remove the promotion with the $25 Google Play credit store issue. Or not issue, sorry, credit that you get, so you can download $25 worth of free stuff. So if you want to get in there, I think you got a few days left, and you can get that free credit with it.
Or you can just wait for the rumored iPad Mini.
With horrible maps.
Revolutionary breakthrough.
Yes, very exciting. iPhone 4 SS. All right, guys, as we start to round out the end of the show here, any guys wanted to add on anything else that we may have missed in the past week? Anyone want to say anything? All right, I think
we missed anything.
I don't think we've missed anything. I think we covered it all and then some.
I'm actually a little disappointed we haven't bitched about the iPhone 5 more. But
we did a whole bitch fest about it last week. You missed it.
Of course I missed it. Well,
Wrong week. Don't worry, we'll come back next week. We'll have you back on the show, Matt, and we can bitch some more about the iPhone 5. We don't have a problem with that. We love bitching about the iPhone 5. Fuck Apple.
Especially Canadians. They tend to whine and bitch a lot.
About Apple. All right, guys. First of all, I'd like to thank Alex, our Greenhorn writer, for joining us on such short notice. Thank you, Alex.
Yep.
Matt, thank you for joining us as well, too. It was really great to have you on the show. We look forward to having you back as well, too. And thank you, Mike Stinger, for being on the show once again, buddy.
You got my last name right, finally.
Hey, I'm allowed to make mistakes. I'm Canadian.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, especially if you're Canadian. Yeah.
Exactly, eh? All right. For everyone at home, thank you for tuning in this week. And in the meantime, and in between time, that's it for the Android Headlines Show. And you can catch this podcast on our website if you want to watch it again. It's a great show to watch over and over again, like a classic. We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.